Okay, so we have covered this jog to walk and to crouch transitions. Now it's working properly. But as you can see, when I make a transition from jog to crouch, it just seems like instantaneous, right? And not much realistic. So instead of quickly jumping from jog state to crouch state, let's add some sort of animation or like entry or exit sort of animations to smoothly make a transition from jog state to crouch state or any sort of a stand up state. Okay, now first I think we may need to do some changes for this SNM set data structure, because currently we have this movement related stuff at here, and to keep any sort of general stuff like this, let's make another data structure called maybe like SNM set general. um, right, so let's go to the TPS game data struct commotions folder. There I think we can create a new folder called general, and inside there let's create a new blueprint structure called anim general. Right. And let's open up this anim data structure as well. So there currently we have is any movement group type. Let's add yeah, maybe before adding this SNM general, let's add some fields to it. So we need crouch idle entry and crouch idle. Right. Or maybe instead of directly defining it like that, I'll create a new data structure called as anim idle stances. Let's say idle stance, and there let's add those two variables. Yeah, now I'll close the unnecessary stuff like this. Yeah, we have an imset general, so let's move those stuff here. This should be an instance, sorry, an sequence, and I'll move it to here. So we have a data structure called as anim idle stance. So here let's create a variable called idle stances and add that to here. Okay, and then inside this data structure is anim set that we defined here. Let's add a field called general, and that should be anim general, right? And I'll move it up here. Right, so if we go to this dt anim set data table, now here we have this general data structure, right? So we have now two main data structures, general and movements. So movements holds all the different types of movement that we can follow, and the general basically holds any sort of general variables that we can reuse across these movements in a shared manner, right? So now we have crouch idle entry and crouch idle exit. Now let's assign the variables to here. Right. So I think we have sort of like crouch entry variables. But since I'm having this unarmed state, I think we can use this unarmed crouch entry. And similarly for the crouch exit, let's use this unarmed crouch exit. Right. So if I show you what are these animations basically do, it's something like this, right? The smooth transition from idle state to the crouch idle state. Right. Now we have those two variables at the data table level. Then let's go to the ABP locomotion graph. So here, first set up the animation graphs and then let's bind the variables that has been taken out from this data table. So here, inside this locomotion, here we have idle state, and let's go to the idle state machine. Inside we have another idle, and there we have another state machine called idle stance, right? So currently it holds only the idle state, which shows any sort of generic idle animation. But here, now we need to make a stance transition smoothly from idle state to some another state. Right. So how we can do that? Okay. So the first thing we can do, let's create a new state called stance transition, and I'll add incoming and outgoing transitions like this. Inside this transition, let's set a sequence player, and as usual, let's make the sequence as dynamic, and yeah, that's all we need to set up. And let the on become relevant functions. Let's create a new binding, and I'll name this as setup idle transition layer. And let's move it to this anim node functions category. Okay. Or maybe we can move this to the state node functions, right? Yeah, let's move it to the state node functions, and then let's convert this to a sequence player and set sequence, and here let's select it. Yeah, now we have to select, if we are crouching, we have to show the crouch idle entry animation, and if we are not crouching, we have to show the crouch idle exit animation. But in order to do any of those stuff, first we need to capture whether we are crouching or not. So how to do that? Mm, so we have function here called what? I think, yeah, on set movement type, right here. Mm, yeah, let's set of character state data, right? So the first character state data that I need to add is movement state changed, because I think whenever we make a movement type change, it's better to capture that specific state as well, right? Now I'll push it to the character state data, and let's set the movement state changed, and let's wait for a delay, and we can unset this thing, right? So like instantaneously at the very first frame, it will set the variable, and within 0.1 second it will reset the variable back to false, right? So this will signal whether the movement state is changed or not, right? And then yeah, so there are several compile issues, we can fix those stuff later on. And then do we have the reference for the character movement component? No, right? So let's go to the initialization function. Oh yeah, we have a reference for the character movement. Great. I think it's on the components category. Yeah. So let's get the character movement component, and we can check whether it is crouching or not, right? By using this function. And if it is crouching, let's promote it to a variable called is crouching. And this one also a character state data, right? So before set this thing, we can do a quick check here as well. So let's say if these two states are not equal, only if are different, we are resetting this crouching state, right? So we can use this one like this. Okay, right. And we can add another state called crouch state changed, and push it to the character state data. We can set it as true and wait for random delay, not for random, actually 0.1 second, and reset it back. So this thing signals whether the crouch state has been changed or not. Right, now now we have that ability to capture whether the crouch is, whether we are crouching or not, right? So let's go back to the select state, and we can plug this is crouching to here. Okay, now we have to plug crouch idle exit and crouch idle entry to these two places, but first we have to set those values, right? So let's go to the set animation data function, and let's add a, maybe let's add a new sequence here, and I'll assign the general stuff to the second pin and anim validities as the third pin, and the first pin as the general stuffs, right? So here now I have this thing, right? Yeah, maybe what I can do is I can promote this to a variable at here. So I'll name this as L underscore, sorry, I think this should be a local variable L underscore general, right? So those two are stored here, and then let's use that general struct here, break it. Now I have idle stances, again break it, and let's promote this to a variable. This one is crouch idle entry, move it to the name sequences category, and another one for crouch idle exit. Move this one to the name sequences as well, and plug it to here. And I'll collapse these nodes called idle stances, and organize the pins a little bit. Okay, now let's go to the this setup idle transition and layer function again. Now you can plug these two values. First one is entry, and if it is false, the second one should be crouch idle exit. Okay, great. Now we have to add the transition logics. If I go back, so the state has been initialized now, but not the transition, right? So I'll add the new transition, but this should be a initialization blend logic, and inside that transition logic you can plug a dynamic value, maybe not a dynamic value, but do we have a reference for the crouch? Yeah, crouch state change. Yeah, and then let's compile. Yeah, so the first transition is done, and similarly for the outgoing transition, let's make it as initialization as well, and inside of it let's add that crouch state changed. Okay, so this will basically do a quick transition to this stance transition and play it, and go to the idle state again. Then in either way we have to go back to the idle state one soon after this one completed. So let's add a new transition, with the priority order 2 and initialization, and mark it as automatic rule-based transition. Because in case the priority 1 fails, we shouldn't remain at the stance transition layer. Instead of that, we have to go back to the idle state. And also, I think inside the stance transition sequence player, maybe we don't need to make it as a loop animation, right? Because it's a stance animation that should be played only once. So let's untick it, compile, and save. Right. Right. See, if I toggle the crouch, still that transition is not applied. But sometimes it is applied. Here you can see if I quickly try to what? Yeah, I think it's not properly applied, right? Because it's quite obvious, because it doesn't give a signal for the crouch state change. So I can show you here at the set onset movement type. So at the very end, let's add a print string, and let's print the crouch state change value. You can see even if I press the crouch, it doesn't print it, right? Because here we are trying to see whether we are crouching or not, but ideally this one is a function provided by the Unreal Engine. Therefore I have to set is crouching for this specific movement component. Otherwise this pure function is doesn't aware of that value transition, right? So let's go to the TPS game blueprints BPC locomotion system component. Right, maybe not here. I think the character blueprints player base. Yeah, here we do the transition, right? Okay, so what we can do is we can get the character movement component, right? Or maybe shall we directly call the crouch? Yeah, you can directly call the crouch function because this function comes with the character level itself. So let's mark it as crouch if we are crouching, and if we are not crouching, let's mark it as crouch. Okay, let's compile, save, and give it a play. Okay, I think still still it doesn't aware of that change. Set movement type, and send in the set movement type signal to function call to here. It get triggers. Right, I think it comes until here. So let's print and see. Yep. And let me quickly look at my documentation. Character movement component is crouching. Okay, let's print its value. I think it's keep printing false. Maybe that's why. Oh, the player base. Okay, let me debug. Yeah, so I found the issue. Actually, we have to toggle a specific property at the movement component. So let's just search for crouch, right? And here there are a set of variables that we can set if a crouching is required. So I think let's mark this as can crouch, right? And for the crouch half height, let's make it as 32. Okay, and let's give it a try. Okay, now you can see actually the transition happens, but it seems bit much flashing. Okay, there are several errors actually at this state transition. So let's first go to here, name graph, locomotion, idle state machine, idle stance, and stance transition are not there actually here. So for now, let's make it as standard blend, and let's see what happens. Yeah, now that flashing issue has been go. Okay, but I think still it's not quite perfect, because sometimes if we change the state, the crouching state is lost, right? So instead of adding a flip-flop like this, I think it's better to capture that local state at here, right? So how to do that? Maybe we can create some helper functions for now, right? Later on we can move these functions outside this player base. Because later on actually we are going to add some NPC characters and stuff like that. Therefore I think we have to move these logics to some sort of generic component later on, but for now this would be fine. So I think within this function, let's mark it as pure, and we can consume an input called crouched, right? This is just an initial value. So if we are already crouching, is to get the is crouched. Yeah, it is crouched. So this comes from the character component itself. So whether we are already crouching and we are returning the value like this. So now the state is captured properly. Therefore, we can go back instead of this flip flop. Use that function, and if it is triggered, if you already crouched, sorry, if you're not crouched, then we crouch, and if you already crouched, then uncrouch. Okay, so let's give it a try. Yeah, yes, that's uncrouching works. Okay, I think the animation transition seems bit laggy yet, right? It works, but not quite perfect. So let's see how we can resolve it. Yeah, I think this would be fine now. So if I show you what's our output is, basically we have this sort of output, but it's laggy. So I found there was the issue. So sometimes when you are making a quick transition from state to state, like we did here inside the idle state machine and inside the idle stance. So this is the quick transition from idle to stance transition, then quickly jump back to the stance transition to the idle state. So in such scenarios, I think we need to add some initialization, right? But for these transitions, I currently mark it as standard blend, this one, and this one. But I think at the root level, at this very end, let's add a initialization node and compile, save, and play it again. You can see that jitter effect has been gone, right? It's not much jittering anymore, right? So this approach would be pretty much fine. And if you want, actually you can mark these two states as initialization and compile and save and play it again. But you can see now it's bit flashy, right? So let's keep it as standard play. Compile, save, play it again. Yeah, now this state transition will be fine. But here now you can see since our capsule half height is getting reduced, the camera is also moving along the way, right? But later on we can make a fix for this. For now this would be fine, right? Otherwise a quick snap of camera is happening when you are make a crouch transition, right? Okay, so let's disable that debug test as well. I think it's at here. Yeah, save. We have another print statement here. Here we have, remove that thing. Okay, right, no more print statements. Let's play it again. And yep, the crouch is working properly now. Well, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's better than before. Yeah. And sometimes you can see whenever we move and try to uncrouch, the state is bit flashy, right? See, so such scenarios we have to handle some improvements, but ideally it works, right? So if I remain in the idle state, crouch entry and crouch exit works properly. Okay, so those are the stuff that I need to cover, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.